When it comes to knowing which game is the one, a heavy factor to my own assessment is the feel and setting of the world. Is the place persistent enough to keep me interested? Can I immerse myself in it? Are there numerous locations allowing me to do the dumbest tomfoolery that the game's engine can physically allow? If not, then you better up your game. Have a story, fun gameplay, something I can fondle with great intensity for more than a couple of hours. However, if you passed on the latter and have a good story as a bonus, then hey, you might be featured in my gracious favourites category. Congratulations. As for the atmosphere itself, creating a good one also has a considerable number of variables that I take into account. Does the world layout feel right? Is the lighting setting the mood? And most importantly, are there strip clubs? Suffice to say, I'm an absolute sucker for good world building, and as time goes on, I've begun getting newfound respect for the music and sounds that transfer from the game world into my eardrums. Because let's be honest, music is a massive deal breaker in atmosphere. Like I was saying, the musical harmonies and melodies that play in the background matter more than one may think, and yes, I know, I am the first person to cover this topic, so there's no worry for competition. If anything, it's reassuring me that people do still care about the music, because more people need to discover some absolute gems. And when I said atmospheric in the title, yeah, forget about that, this is a more broad use of the adjective to encompass more soundtracks than just ambience. And to those that oppose me using the word to describe the songs, fuck you, I want to talk about music, and in particular, shanties. Assassin's Creed 4 and by extension Rogue are probably my two favourite games in the series' lineage, which is kind of ironic in a sense, considering these two are the least like a typical Assassin's Creed experience, most likely because of the obligatory. The ports like Havana, Nassau and Kingston have got some decent enough land music to fit with the Caribbean setting, I'm not complaining, but the open water is where the music, and of course the whole game's main naval mechanic, shines, because as you're battling with the British and Spanish convoys, you got bleeding your ears out with the crashing of the waves feeling fierce and the sound of cannon fire piercing your eardrums and the crew below deck shouting and cheering and crying and let's snap back to reality. The boarding themes and naval combat themes are second to none in both pirate paradises, which really make you feel like you're Captain Kenway himself. Not you, stay the fuck away. That summer I had a couple years back while playing Black Flag will forever be the defining moment that I was sold on single player open world titles. But oh boy, the cream of the crop. We got Pentatonics from 1753 on board and they're bellowing their lungs out to leave her Johnny. What more could you want? We're living the naval dream. I've often been asked why I don't fast travel while playing these sorts of open world games. Take a wild guess as to what the reason behind that is. The shanties that randomly play while you're sailing often give a scenic edge for the jackdaw, and depending on the weather conditions it could feel calming or as if you're actually living in the shanty itself. I mean, for Christ's sake, even the loading screen for Rogue sounds chilling to the point where I can start seeing snow outside even though it's still spring. I can see the aurora borealis above the North Atlantic already. Or maybe I overdosed on that army surplus morphine. Huh.
Morphine. Might not be filling, but I'm sure it's satisfying.
I've only recently picked up LA Noire for the first time, which is a big step for my ape-like brain, as playing something that requires legitimate thinking instead of rushing in with an M4 and breaching charges is a nice change of pace for once. So as you go across the City of Angels picking up clues and intimidating half of Central District into chronic depression, going from place to place features a nice light jazz theme prime for detectives whenever the radio isn't on. It's not as subtle as other cues, but I'll be damned if it doesn't set the mood.
It's gonna mix from completion. Burnt to the ground last night. You guys are ready to move in this weekend. Go.
However, take a dip into an alleyway crime scene and the jazz transforms into a spine-chilling melody as you piece together what horrors occurred late last night. Even down to when you're chasing the Black Forest Gatto killer, or whatever his bloody name was, through an abandoned church, his mini kill house in the crypt, and the creepily dark catacombs beneath. You have the screeching violin, distorted jazz arrangements, and suitably tense tone, crafting a Hitchcockian feel. And achieving this in a video game, that's quite a considerable achievement. LA Noire succeeds in a lot of areas, and the music definitely aids the game's reputation, as the 1940s feel even more realised as a result. And then with the interrogations, you have this constant build-up of tension with the faded orchestra. But fuck up once and...
I am not now.
No, oh fuck! But let's be honest, this is all quite boring and painful to get through, so why don't we change frequency back to 8-bit. As far as original OSTs go, RPGs typically have much more thought put into the music than say a game like Bioshock or Mirror's Edge. When you're on an adventure travelling to different countries on different landmasses with a time travel machine and a Mongolian tiger by your side, how is one overworld theme going to suffice for all of the content? It's because of this that RPGs tend to have such vast and memorable soundtracks, because if you want to encapsulate and encompass the feel of certain areas, the atmosphere is only as good as the music itself. And why did they need to make Chrono Trigger such a fuck? You take a game like Undertale as an example, where each song is near perfect in the way they convey emotion, tone, sexual prowess, the amount of fucks a character gives, and atmosphere. In one of the early shops, the tune is warming, calming, and creates as peaceful a feeling as you can to the practice of capitalism. Then you got the dummy fight, which is suitably hectic and chaotic as it flings everything at you in a blind rage. Now cut to Asriel, and along with other tracks like Bergen-Trocken, Waterfall, and Tem, the world and general atmosphere just feel that much better as a result. The core feels more cyberpunk in style, with cogs turning and boombox robots wanting to consume another. Snowdin uses instruments that you would expect your Year 5 Christmas play to use. Waterfall has echoing chimes and a deeper tone for the no man's land feeling it creates. The ruins are the first location, so the melodies are calming as you adjust to and learn the way the game ticks. And up to the city, where the truth about the past gets revealed to the player. It's the same case in Earthbound, Final Fantasy, Trials of Mana. That distinctive soundtrack always shines through to give the world its massive boost of memorability and atmospheric feel. I'm not bothering with a transition, shut up. Rainbow Six Siege probably isn't a game you expected to see on here. After all, it's heavily multiplayer. Everybody knows in-depth atmospheres don't exist in online game modes. What heresy? Well, A, you're a closed-minded individual who'd be fun at a funeral mass, and B, the music, whenever presented, is perfectly reminiscent of the situation. Now, I'm not talking about specifically a particular game that you or I would endure on casual or ranked, not in the situational side ops or anywhere on the home screen. Instead, I'm thinking about the mages and their magnificent... Oh, never mind, the video's been copyright claimed, my bad. The competitive scene in Siege is probably the most depressing trial by fire you can experience, but if Ubisoft have a talent, it's creating atmospheres to rival reality. Whenever a new season of Majors or Invitationals rolled in, I remember being more mesmerized by the sheer power of the Rainbow Six Orchestra. Just looking up the performance for the 2019 opening ceremony will display to you the measure that Ubisoft go to ensure you feel the weight of this fast-paced class shooter. If there was an award for the most hype that a game can make you, that award would graciously go to Garfield Kart. Then Siege is definitely up there. Outside just the live orchestra for these grand tournament openings, there were also other individual tracks played at the Invitational for different scenarios the teams would find themselves in throughout a round. 60 seconds on the clock. The music introduces a fast-paced, drum-fueled surge as 60 seconds in Siege can feel like a mere 5, enticing you to keep moving. 1v5 completely shifts into a melodramatic yet hopeful buzz as the last man standing tries to fight through what seems like impossible odds. Match point. This could be the last round of the game, a win or lose situation, and no matter what, you have to find a way to outsmart the enemy and take them when they least expect it. The music in Majors perfectly encapsulate the feel of being in that zone that you only experience once every other year. That feeling when you can take on anything, anyone, anywhere, because Siege is a suitably tense tactical multiplayer shooter that is competitive to the core. An orchestra acting as the background music adds on to the powerful atmosphere that shrouds you in a lobby where the enemy could be anywhere waiting to pounce. Now combine all these together and you get perhaps the best epics in a game that knows and fully embraces its competitive and edgy tone. But the real best atmospheric music in Siege, it's the chat on border. So symbolic. What's next? What the fuck? I've been wanting to talk about Far Cry 5 for a considerable amount of time now, because if you visit Hope County for only a second, you'll return with a testy festy t-shirt and the word Wrath tattooed on your chest. Ergo, it's absolute bedlam. But other than the abundance of chaos and slapstick craziness, this game has one of the best settings for an FPS I've ever laid witness to. And it's the third fucking Ubisoft game in this video. Because instead of the backing track just being an amalgamation of drummers and violinists breaking their fingers and guitarists rupturing their forearm, the game's OST doesn't shy away from embracing the rural, calming Montana style. The religious and political theming that also lies behind the gates of Eden heavily inspire other tracks to sound as heavenly as possible too. Quite literally. That's not to say that there aren't any hectic themes, because trust me, there are no shortage fueling the Resistance's themes and being the cause of radicalism in the whole state. But if you take the time to back away from the action-packed highways and outposts, the game's atmosphere transforms into one of the most immersive natural environments in any game I've ever played. When it wants to, Far Cry 5 can be every bit as beautiful as its real-life counterpart. It's very effective at knowing when to ease off and give you time to yourself in the sprawling mountain state. For half the ride you're sniping down the dogfighters, mowing roadblocks, blowing up entire bunkers with the fiddler having a stroke in the background, then let's take a step back, take a deep breath, enjoy the countryside. This is a large expansive valley after all. And then you're ripping through the angels, tearing down the flags, dropping the bombs on Eden's Gate and... No, Why not stroll for a bit, embrace the soft piano and banjo, talk to the locals and bond in this culturally rich setting? This way of transforming from action to relaxing is probably why I have nothing but fond memories of this game. Everything about the atmospheric soundtracks and their perfect instrumentation and delivery, it enhances Hope County to the next level. And these are the songs played by the antagonists. Rarely does a game compel me to the point where I just want to take it slow, but the power of Hammock's soundtrack and the valley providing so much virtual natural beauty, how can I not take the time to enjoy it? I would go on, but then the view weight would drop, so let's not. Proper atmospheric music I haven't even touched on yet, so you're not allowed to click off. The reinterpretations. Now I've only got one thing to say. Damn. While consumed by the bliss, the reinterpretation in the background makes you momentarily believe that you've found heaven in its purest, muted green form, even though in reality you're tripping out hard over fentanyl. Yet, in the wider Far Cry fandom, this game has been ridiculed relentlessly since launch day for being too similar to everything else on the market. Far Cry 3 has a great atmosphere with its soundtracks and has a fairly compelling story that had more focus than 5's did in terms of delivery at the cost of larger exploration. And then there was also 4 with its Indian theming, which was certainly atmospheric, but the rest of the game could have done with more innovation from its predecessor, to say the least. All I'm saying, Far Cry 5, for a game that is apparently so similar to everything else, it sure as hell stood out to me. But with the direct sequel being Fallout 3 and feeling even more uninspired, I'm not surprised anyone wants to pass. Last, but certainly not least, I want to cover how Sonic Unleashed manages to craft its selection of fictional countries into feeling more alive than any other setting in the platformer series. It's of course common knowledge that almost all the games in the Sonic franchise have had killer soundtracks, but when you specifically focus on atmosphere, Unleashed is just... oh my god. Like Adventure Field, yeah, it's great and has the Giga Chad Burger Man, but do you actually get a feel for any resemblance of culture? I use that word lightly in this context. Well, if you take a look at any of the 7 foreign landmasses, you can actually see the effort that Sega went to here to immerse you in this cartoony world. Taking a place like Apotos as an example, where this town was made to replicate Greek and Mediterranean port towns with bright and colourful buildings and seafronts, so the backing track suitably uses very soft, gentle melodies and instruments, along with a slight noise of crashing waves to replicate the jackdaw's bow and... Oh shit, hold on, this is the wrong segment. To add on to this, the hubboards also feature different iterations of the location song for when after the sun goes down. While the daytime theme of Apotos remained light and happy and bright enough to cause a seizure, the night theme changes into a more relaxing, toned down theme with its slower pacing that can be found in its natural habitat, lo-fi music comps. All throughout the different countries, you get this consistent feel of what's going on and the real world country the music represents. Add on some ambient sounds and a hot dog stand and you got a recipe for an atmosphere at your fingertips. 1 second you're in an upbeat prison block and the next you're listening to... okay, I don't like the sexual mood this tune gives off, but I'll be damned if it doesn't spark the feeling of being alive effectively. This is by far the most immersive and perhaps atmospheric Sonic game I've played in a long time. Colors and Black Knight have their own unique catalogue of tunes representing both mythology and space, and while I don't think they are quite as in-depth as Planetary Pieces, they sure as hell connote their setting in a way that not a lot of other games can achieve. But hell, there are other platformers that have managed to reach similar levels of atmosphere on their own. Now I will go into more detail, but I'm a lazy git, so Mario Galaxy it is to finish on. While Sonic Colors focuses on the techno and futuristic style of their planet's themes, Mario Galaxy decides to go in the complete opposite direction and implement an orchestra, which was most definitely the right thing to do, as Mario games are slower paced, so having Skrillex blast in the background wouldn't make much sense. And my god, does it work. As you move through the solar systems and discover more and more galaxies, the music remains as triumphant as you can imagine in these vast expanses, thus making the general tone and atmosphere feel even more massive than it appears. And then you got Gusty Garden, and your ears rupture at the sound of its magnificence. And while I still prefer the set pieces and general atmosphere on the stages of Colors, Mario Galaxy takes a very, very close second. But if we just break away from the main action again, and take a step back, we get even more atmospherically calming tunes. Like for example, the Hub Observatory has such a simple theme, but it makes the whole location feel like a breakaway from space, even though you're trapped eternally in this vast void. Tone is very prevalent and shines through every nook and cranny this game has to offer, and amongst all these games with atmospheres, the music has always shone through to add the final finishing touches and ensure my full attention to the game. That's not to say that you can't make a good atmosphere without music. Take GTA 4 as an example, where the only music can be found in the intro, credits and radio that plays in car journeys with the best side characters ever conceived.
I am really hoping that Roman realizes you are a freeloading shithole, so I don't have to drive you again.
But to those studios that go the extra mile for the sake of immersion, I salute. So what can we take away from this? We learned that all of these atmospheres are irrelevant because Sephiroth just exists. And we all know that you don't fuck with a guy that has Latin choirs in his theme, because oh my